Hey YouTube, Adam here. I'm going to be upgrading my main PC finally. I've been running with a Core i7-377K for a number of years, and it's time to upgrade finally. I know that the 877K is going to be out soon, but I'm just going to stick with Kaby Lake and be happy with it. Many components from my original build are going to remain. These are pretty much the only ones that are going to be changed, along with a couple of additions from, I'm consolidating a couple of machines together. So what we have is the processor itself, so it's just a i7-7700K. I have 32 gigabytes of DDR4 memory for this. It's 3200 megahertz memory. The board I chose is this MSI Z270 SLI. I'm going to be retaining my two MSI 970 GPUs and the power supply, case, and so forth. So we'll go over those components. I also purchased a Crucial MX300 525 gigabyte M.2 SSD. So this will be my boot drive. Well, I haven't decided. I might retain the Samsung 840 that's in here as the boot drive, and then just utilize this as a my Steam drive basically, but I'll decide that as I go, I suppose. And then I have these two AverMedia Live Gamer HDs. I forget the model number. I think it's like C985 or something like that. I have two of these that I'm going to be taking from my old capture PC. One is just basically used for capturing from the machine itself, so I don't have to use fraps anymore. The other is going to be used for the consoles. One of the reasons I want to have the two is so that if I'm using a broadcasting program, I can have two different sources at once. It's just kind of easier for me. And then I'm also going to be using these two 500 gigabyte Western Digital Blue hard drives that I have. I'll put those in a Windows storage space and use those as the drive that things are captured on locally, and then they get copied over to my FreeNAS box. Just because I have had problems in the past, even with gigabit internet or gigabit LAN. Sometimes you get little hiccups and stuff when you try to capture things over the LAN. So I'm going to just capture locally like I have been doing, and then mirror the stuff over to the NAS as there's time. So I am going to pull the current board out of here. We'll take a look at what I have been running. Well, actually, that's going to be transferred to a different machine, so we'll look at that in a different one. But let's get some room here, start opening some boxes and taking a look. Alright, so I grabbed an extremely dirty knife. This has tape residue on it. I use this to open a lot of boxes. Like, this box isn't even taped. So, there are a few reasons I settled on this motherboard. The first being I needed something with SLI support. The second being, out of all the boards that were available, it was like the least garish. Looks like it has a pretty basic I/O shield here. Comes with two SATA cables, a disk that I don't want or need, and they thank us for choosing them. Very minimal installation thingy here. Does this have the front panel stuff on it? That would be super cool. Looks like it does. Cool. So I will set that aside because I will probably want that, and a little bit more in depth of a manual. Cool. So I will throw the stuff I'm not going to use back in this box, because I do usually keep my main board boxes so when they move on I can sell them as complete as possible. And also, I don't know this works yet, so who knows, I might have to RMA or return it or something. You never know. I've actually never had that happen with a new board, but it still could. So, the board itself, I know some people get all bent out of shape about not wearing an anti-static strap, but I've been doing this for like more than 15 years, and I've never had a problem. I've lived in Maine before, now I live in Oregon, and we don't have tremendous amounts of static electricity, and I don't go dragging my feet around and stuff, so I'm not super worried about that. But anyway, this board, it doesn't have lights, it doesn't have all the horrible stuff that I don't like on a lot of the more modern boards that you just, it's not my thing. But we do have the two slots. I guess these ones They're actually metal. That's interesting. Those are going to be for the graphics cards. Obviously, that's going to obstruct a lot of this. I think I'll be able to put the capture cards. It's going to have to go like video card. I'll block that. Capture card, video card, and then capture card. So we just have PCI Express on this. There's no legacy anything. Looks like we have our SATA connectors. There's our power, obviously. There's nice heat sinks on all of these components. Notice a lot of these boards have this like structure around the back panel. It's kind of an interesting thing. But it looks like we have probably fake PS2, USB. There's onboard DVI, HDMI. Looks like a display port or something. It looks like there's the USB 3 and the Intel onboard NIC, along with what's supposed to be, they made a big deal about all these filters and stuff for the audio, so hopefully the audio is decent on this. We also have our M.2 slots there, so I'm gonna go ahead, I think, and just start with that, since it should be relatively straightforward. See what we've got here. This is very plain packaging for this. I don't really mind that. I kind of like it when things come in plain packaging. It's no sense printing up a bunch of fancy stuff, especially if it's going to just be on Amazon and nobody's ever going to see it in a store. It doesn't need to attract anyone's attention. So we have a couple screws. We have the actual SSD here. So I'm just going to set that there. And looks like it comes with a true image software activation key, but I don't need that. I'm going to be doing a fresh install anyway. So I've actually never used one of these before, but does it say, I wonder if there's a preference, which one, that one says M.2 so I'm going to assume want to go with M.2, and the keying on this seems to go either way. I'm going to assume that this label goes up. And do I need to move this stand off? Yes, I do. So where does this actually end up? Looks like there. It's kind of interesting. I've never used one of these, so it feels a little strange. But I do think I'm gonna probably, like I said, retain the original SSD, because it's been plenty fast enough for just booting Windows and stuff. I'm not super concerned about that, any more speed for that. Alright, let's see if we can... These always make me think of like illicit things, like drugs come in them or something. Come on, little bag. Ugh, that bag was terrible to open. And these screws are very tiny, which I suppose is probably why they give you two. I'm not sure that the screwdriver I actually have here is going to be small enough. I'm going to have to go find a different screwdriver to install this. So that's going to be fun. Okay, so I found a little screwdriver, and in addition to the screws that came with the drive, it looks like the board also comes with tiny little screws that go to this. They're actually smaller than the ones that came with the drive, so I'm going to use the ones that came with the board instead. Let's see if we can get this. This screwdriver's like lightly magnetic. Alright, well that should be good to go. I'm trying to get everything that I can attached before I actually have to rip into the old machine and tear stuff out. So I guess we can just throw, it's probably going to be easier to work with the CPU when I have this all before I put the memory in. Now I believe my M.2 cooler should just work with this. I don't think Intel has updated the coolers in a really long time, the layout, so should be good to go. I think those go all the way back to like the 775 days or something. Come on, box. So these don't come, they haven't come for a while with stock Intel coolers, which is fine with me. Looks like just throw the box with the other boxes over there. And we have our traditional little pamphlet with our Core i7 sticker, so I will throw that on. I like case badges, they're fun. And the only other thing to come in this package is on this piece of cardboard. We have our CPU. This actually feels heavier than other CPUs. I don't know what's the deal with that is, but so let's get this up. See if they're not sure the camera is going to be able to read that or not. But I believe it's at it's at 4.2 gigahertz, so should be a pretty good speed boost from my previous. I think it's at 3.4, and it's obviously older tech. So it looks like the keys are towards the top here. And usually these plastic things just kind of pop off when you pull it down, so we don't have to worry about damaging any of the pins. I will throw that in the motherboard stuff when I can. Alright, so the only remaining thing I'm going to be able to do before I take the old machine apart at this point is installing the memory. I'm just trying to clear stuff as I go because I don't have a huge amount of table space right now. So, memory. Not really messed around with DDR4 before, so this will be an exciting adventure. I think there's a version of this that has ridiculous chroma, like RGB stuff, and again, I'm not really interested in that. So there's our memory. We got 4 sticks in total. Again, it's 32 gigabytes in total. So let's see how the keying works. It looks like the short end goes that way. It's always a good feeling. I like these heat spreaders. A lot of black. If I had a windowed case, I wouldn't actually mind it with this. I'm not a big fan of windowed cases, as I've mentioned before, but this would not be offensive, assuming it. I don't think it has too many LEDs on the board. Come on, memory. Alright, so that is pretty much everything I can get done without removing everything from the existing case. So I am going to go ahead and just strip the parts out and make a big old pile of stuff. Unfortunately, there's going to be a fair amount of disassembly required, so that's going to be fun. Alright, so I've successfully extracted what I needed to. We're going to be retaining the same Corsair Carbide 330R, I believe is the model number of this case. I have a Blu-ray drive and a CD burner, or DVD burner in there that I'm going to retain too. I like having optical drives. I do use them from time to time, especially for ripping movies like Blu-rays and stuff. The power supply is the same Corsair AX850. I have my 2 MSI GTX 970s that I'm going to be using. And I did decide I'm going to go dust off a lot of these components, but I am going to retain my Samsung SSD as the boot drive. I probably won't be able to reactivate this copy of Windows, but whatever. This is the board that was installed. It is a ASRock board. This is not originally the board that I had for this machine back when I built it. Originally, it had a Gigabyte GAZ77 something or other. I don't remember the model number, but that board actually died. It was the first Gigabyte board that I've had die on me, which is why I bought this MSI board actually partially too, because I have an MSI board from a machine I built back in like 2008 or 9 or whenever when the Core series first came out. It has an i7 875K in it. And I've had that board forever, and I still use it for an intermediate computer, although I think this is going to be replacing that. But that's been working fine, so I wanted to go ahead and just try something different. Gigabyte, I'm kind of de-gigabyting my my world. This is missing one of those little retainers for the PCI Express slot. Those get broken a lot. But this board will be reappearing. I need to get this cooler off, and I'm debating whether I'm going to keep this board and chip, the i7-37-7K, or not. I might end up moving it along and selling it, but I'll think about it. Anyway, I'm gonna clean up, get this cooler off. I do have another one of these, but it's being used, so I'm just gonna use the same cooler. It's probably good to reapply thermal compound if I do use this. Anyway, so I'm gonna clean this stuff up a bit. Alright, so I more or less cleaned up the contact surface on the heat sink here. I'm gonna take a little rubbing alcohol to the actual CPU since I did touch it. Try to keep things nice and clean here. I like to use rubbing alcohol because it evaporates really quickly and it doesn't leave any sort of nasty residue. I have some just Arctic MX4 thermal compound I'm going to use here. I like to buy these big tubes because I've actually been going through a lot of this stuff these days, and just going to put a little dollop on there. Probably a little too much. Put that aside. Now, these are under a fair amount of tension actually, and I'm going to try to be careful to not touch the actual mounting surface here as I let it down. And these Noctua coolers are really nice because they have a nice sturdy back plane and all that stuff, so they're very well constructed. They're actually pretty easy to install compared to I've used a bunch of those Cooler Master N520s and Hypercooler 212 Evos or whatever, and I like this design quite a bit better. I'm a Noctua fan, as you can probably tell if you've watched any of my videos. Most of my machines have mostly Noctua fans in them. And I'm trying to just kind of keep even pressure here as I tighten this down. Sort of like when you put a tire on a car, or a wheel on a car. You don't put a tire on the car, you put a tire on the rim. And you put the rim on the car. And that's reasonably well secured. So before I put the fans on, I think I'm actually going to mount this in the case. I don't really have a way of recording that very well, and I'm trying to keep this a family-friendly show anyway, so I think I'm going to just do that. I gotta figure out where exactly the front panel headers are. That looks like there's two USB 3s on this, which is nice. And I guess I'm going to assume that something over here is, that's got to be, no, it says column. Okay, that says parallel. The heck is it? Oh, jumper front panel probably right here. And it's not silk screened. That my other MSI board, which is from like 10 years ago almost, isn't silk screened either. I guess they just don't silk screen their stuff. That's nice. So I'll get to look through the lovely directions and figure that out. But first things first here. Alright, so I'm hoping that we've got everything installed here. We got the video cards. You can kind of see the capture cards down in there. Got the cooler. I'm not hooking up the hard drives yet. There are so many HDMI and DVI on the back of this now. So I am going to flip the switch here, and she lives. Let's turn off the light here. I did not plug in a keyboard. Hopefully it will figure out. That wasn't encouraging. Hopefully it was just reconfiguring. Yep, it rebooted. I think it's just reconfiguring itself. Let's see if I can grab this here. Trying to get a USB for a keyboard here. Alright, we have no video, but it's on VGA. How do I switch? I just got this monitor a little while ago. There we go, DVI. Oh, I saw a cursor. It sort of lives. Let's grab the keyboard and do this again. Because I definitely saw something. I think I just waited too long. Well, this does not want to focus right now at all. There it goes. So, it's recognizing the CPU. It's recognizing my... Yeah, there's the CPU. Memory. All of that. It looks like the memory is running slower than it's supposed to. So we'll look into that. But I don't have a mouse. I hate UEFI BIOS. Ugh. Anyway, I'm going to look at some of the settings here, and assuming everything's okay, I'm going to put in the SSD, and we'll reformat it and get Windows started. I might need a mouse to do this easily. Alright, so we got the memory running at its correct speed. I'm not going to bother trying to overclock the CPU right now. I'm just going to get Windows installed and probably tinker with that in the future. Looks like all of our drives are being recognized just fine. So I have here a USB thumbstick. I'm going to go ahead and pop that bad boy in. I believe it has Windows 10 installation on it still. Looks like we're going into the Windows setup. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with this, and when we come back we'll see how she's running. Alright, so we're back over on the new installation here. Let me move this over here. So we got our Windows 10 activated, everything's good. Our Core i7-77K, it's been everything's been activated. It's working well. My applications have been brought over from restore I did of my personal settings from my Windows server. Looks like if we check here, come on, there we go. So it goes up to like 4.5 gigahertz right now, and just, you know, the speed stepping's working well. Everything looks good. I've got our main board information here. I do need to update the BIOS, and our memory is showing up just fine. My video cards are showing up just fine. So everything seems to have survived. I did go ahead and set up the Intel Rapid Storage stuff. Instead of using the Windows storage spaces, I figured I'd try this. I know it's not like real RAID, but this is only just for my capture stuff, so it's probably fine. Just to capture live. I'm actually using the capture card, one of the capture cards that I installed. If we look at Device Manager, you can see everything working well here. We got our capture cards. I still have my old capture stuff hooked up to this as well. There's a lot of stuff, but some of this is going to get revamped in the very near future. I guess that's pretty much it for this machine. I'm going to keep messing around with some of the stuff in the BIOS just to see how much I can get out of it in terms of overclocking. I'm not going to do like crazy overclocking. It's rated, I think it was 4.2 gigahertz. So if I get up to like, it's running at 4.5 or so now. If I get up to like 4.6 or so, I'd probably be happy. Leave it at that. Just a mild overclocking. It is tempting to go for 5 gigahertz just because it would be kind of cool. If we look here, performance. So yeah, I mean, we're pretty much in good shape here. So let's take a look at, yeah, here we go. That's what I was looking for. We got all of our cores showing up there, and obviously hyper threading is going. So feeling pretty good about this new machine. We'll have to see how it goes long term. I am going to be doing some more videos with some other machines that need to be updated and so forth. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you next time.